My parents suspended my tuition until I apologized to my cousin, so I turned his fake company into a case study. Hi, I'm Theo, 19, and the last normal day I had ended with my parents telling me I was a disruption to family harmony, and suspending my college tuition until I apologized to their beloved golden boy, my cousin, Brandon. So I packed a bag, emptied my campus locker, and decided if they wanted silence, I'd give them a vacuum. It started over Thanksgiving weekend. Not some earth-shaking betrayal or tabloid-worthy blow-up. No. Just Brandon showing up to family dinner in a new Rolex, his third, talking about how his crypto consulting firm had just closed another client. He winked at me across the table like we were in on the same joke. We weren't. I rolled my eyes. That was my sin. Literally. That was it. A visible eye roll. My mom's fork clinked against her plate. My dad cleared his throat the way he does before meetings. My aunt, Brandon's mom, narrowed her eyes and went, "That kind of attitude is why he's successful and you're still finding yourself." I said, "I'm getting a double major in computer science and linguistics." She said, "Exactly." Brandon laughed. The rich, smug kind that sounds like it grew up on yacht club docks. "Hey man, I get it," he said. "Some people are thinkers, some people are doers." That's when I said, "And some people are trust funds with a business card." Yeah. Not my smoothest line. But my aunt gasped like I'd slapped her baby. My mom's face drained of color. My dad said the phrase that would ignite everything. "Theo, apologize. Right now." I didn't. I said, "Why? Because I told the truth?" Brandon shrugged like none of it touched him. "It's cool. He's got stuff to work through." That night, my parents pulled me aside. Said I needed to make things right with Brandon. Said I embarrassed the family. Said I wouldn't be returning to school next semester unless I fixed it. Unless I groveled. Unless I bent. So I packed instead. I left a note on the kitchen counter that read, "You want harmony? Enjoy the silence." Then I disappeared. I moved into a friend's guest room. Linus, he's in the theater program, all scarves and sarcasm, took one look at my duffel bag and said, "Oof. Family drama or romantic implosion?" "Same thing," I muttered. He let me stay, no questions. The room smelled like lavender and ramen packets. I stayed up most nights building freelance projects on my laptop, small-time automation scripts, chatbot prototypes, even a browser extension that corrects corporate buzzwords to their honest equivalents. Synergy becomes confused chaos. Family business becomes nepotism playground. My parents didn't text. Didn't call. Just a formal email from my dad's assistant, his assistant, confirming that my tuition payments had been paused. Pending behavioral resolution. That phrase clung to my brain like gum on a shoe. Brandon, meanwhile, posted a LinkedIn update. "Entrepreneurship isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about rising above it with grace." Captioned under a photo of him on a jet ski. I could have let it go. Could have moved on, ignored the whole thing, waited for my parents to miss me. But here's the thing about being pushed out of the life you built: you start wondering what you'd build if no one could push you out again. So I started designing something dangerous. Not a virus. Not a hack. A profile. Of Brandon. A map of every fake claim, every ghost investor, every client, who was just a friend from his frat paid to write a testimonial. I didn't need revenge. I needed proof. And I was very, very good at gathering proof. By the end of the second week, I had receipts. Literal ones. And I was just getting started. The first big break came courtesy of a Slack leak. One of Brandon's employees, a guy named Ray who'd been promised equity and kept getting paid in merch, sent me screenshots. Said he saw Brandon bragging at a bar about playing at being CEO, until his mom could connect him to a real job. The messages were beautiful. "Let them think we're legit. Optics are the product. Just say we're pre-revenue. It sounds better than no idea how to invoice." There it was. Proof Brandon wasn't a tech visionary, he was a cosplayer in business casual. And the only reason his company hadn't collapsed yet? Family money propping it up like a drunk leaning on a parking meter. I packaged everything. Screenshots, financial records, fake testimonials linked back to IPs at the same WeWork location. Then I made a little site. One page. Elegant. Titled, "Optics Are the Product, an unofficial case study of Brandon Fairchild's CEO." No slander. No editorializing. Just quotes, links, documents. Facts. Searchable. Citable. Beautiful. And then I tweeted it from an anonymous account. It caught fire within an hour. Some startup subreddit picked it up first. Then Hacker News. Then a niche tech ethics blog posted a breakdown titled, "The Emperor's New Pitch Deck." By morning, Brandon was trending. By noon, someone had turned his headshot into a meme template. And by evening, my parents called me. I didn't pick up. Because the apology they wanted? I was about to deliver it with interest. The voicemail from my mom sounded like someone trying to put out a PR fire with a teacup. "Theo. We saw the article. Or whatever it is. We're concerned. Your cousin is very upset. This isn't the kind of behavior that, well, just call us, okay?" I didn't. Because Brandon was upset. According to a Reddit comment I found later, he spent the whole day emailing platforms demanding takedowns and tweeting about defamation law, like he was the victim of a hostile merger. Meanwhile, Linus made popcorn. "You exposed a rich kid with a Bluetooth headset and a messiah complex," he said, scrolling gleefully. "You're the Batman of dysfunctional family tech drama." It wasn't just about Brandon anymore. That website had unlocked something. I started getting DMs. From people like me. Kids ignored in favor of their shinier siblings. People written off as moody or difficult because they didn't worship the family's golden child. One message read, "Your site made me realize I'm not crazy. Thank you." And then came the twist. Brandon's flagship client, the one he always bragged about, a boutique app development firm, posted a statement on LinkedIn. "We have never contracted services from Fairchild Innovations. Any statements to the contrary are false." Boom. That went viral too. My inbox exploded with interview requests. A YouTube channel wanted to feature me in a video titled, "How to Take Down a Nepo CEO Without Getting Sued." Someone asked if I'd sell the site as an NFT. I didn't want money. I wanted my parents to read every word on that page and realize something. I wasn't angry. I was awake. 3 days after the site launched, my dad emailed me personally. Not his assistant. Not a forwarded agenda. A real email from his actual account. Subject line: "Let's talk. Body. Your mother and I understand that you're hurting. But this approach, public shaming, it's beneath you. Come home. Let's resolve this as a family." I read it 6 times. Then I hit reply. No tuition. No apology. No address. You made those terms. I'm just working within them. I didn't send it. I archived it. Because the truth was, I didn't want to be right anymore. I wanted to be done. But the thing about dropping a match into a dry forest is sometimes you don't get to control the burn. A second tech blog published a follow-up piece. They dug deeper into Brandon's firm and found he'd been pitching himself as a startup mentor to high schoolers, selling seat tickets to Founders Bootcamp for $400 a pop. They quoted one of the brochures. "Learn from the man who scaled from basement startup to 6 figures in under a year." Except the 6 figures? It was family money. Verified. And the parents? Now furious. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain. I was a whistleblower. Brandon, meanwhile, vanished from social. His startup's site redirected to a 404 page. Aunt Caroline posted a cryptic Facebook status about betrayal by those you feed. Linus laughed so hard he choked on his cereal. I didn't laugh. Because beneath the vindication, I felt that something soft and traitorous. Guilt. I'd expected backlash. What I didn't expect was the part where my mom showed up. In person. At Linus's front door. No warning. No call. Just her, in a trench coat like she was starring in her own family courtroom drama. "I need to see you," she said, breath hitching. "This has gone far enough." I stepped onto the porch. Linus vanished so fast it was like he dissolved. She looked older. Not just tired, like someone who'd had the script yanked from her mid-monologue. She held out a folder. "What's this?" I asked. "Your re-enrollment paperwork. For next semester. Signed. Paid in full." I stared. "And what, I'm supposed to say thank you?" "No," she said quietly. "You're supposed to know we were wrong." That stopped me. She meant it, or at least she meant something. We thought we were protecting the family. Keeping peace. But it turns out we were just keeping the lie comfortable. I folded my arms. "And Brandon?" She winced. "Your aunt says you ruined his future." His future was a hologram. She looked down. I know. For a moment there was silence. Then she said the words I hadn't realized I needed. You were right, Theo. And we owe you more than tuition. We owe you respect. It didn't fix everything. But it cracked something open. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. Just a little. I didn't re-enroll right away. I wasn't about to let one apology buy back a year of silence. Instead, I asked for something else. I want a family meeting. I told my mom. Everyone. Dad. Brandon. And Caroline. No redirecting. No spin. Just the truth. She flinched, but she agreed. We met at my parents' house, the same beige living room where I'd been told to apologize. For the sake of family. This time, I walked in like I owned the place. Because in a way, I did. Not legally. But morally? Yeah. The kid they ignored? He was now the reason anyone was even sitting down. Brandon was already there. Pale. Twitchy. Angry in that performative way rich boys get when they've run out of backup dancers. He opened with, "So this is a witch hunt now?" I said, "No. A witch hunt assumes you're innocent." My dad spoke up before the walls caught fire. "We're here to listen. Not defend." Aunt Caroline scoffed. "This is character assassination." "No," I said. "This is consequence. You built Brandon's reputation on borrowed credibility. I just returned the invoice." I laid it all out calm, methodical, precise. Not cruel. Just undeniable. By the time I was done, Brandon looked like a glitching avatar. Aunt Caroline looked like she might sue gravity. My dad looked ashamed. And my mom? She looked proud. "I'm not angry anymore," I said, standing. "I'm done being your family's footnote." Then I walked out. Not with a slam. Not with a storm. Just with peace. And the knowledge that the kid they once silenced had found his voice. And used it. After the meeting, I didn't go back to Linus's place. I went somewhere else, quiet, neutral, unfamiliar. A public library 2 towns over. I sat by the window and opened my laptop, not to post or plan or build, but to write. Just for me. I drafted a letter. Not to Brandon. Not even to my parents. To myself. I wrote. You didn't imagine it. You weren't too sensitive. You were in a system built to keep you quiet. You broke it. That matters. When I looked up, the sun had shifted. I watched a kid argue with his dad about which science book to check out. The dad didn't laugh. He listened. I felt something odd twist in my chest. Hope. That maybe someday that could be me. That I could build a family someday where no one had to choose between being honest and being loved. Later that night, my dad texted me a photo of the re-enrollment confirmation. No commentary. No lecture. Just a caption. "Welcome back, son." I stared at that for a long time. Not because I forgave them. Because I was finally in a place where their approval didn't define me. I was back. But not the same. Spring semester started cold and quiet. I didn't move back into campus housing. I rented a tiny attic apartment with creaky floors and a window that looked out over an alley full of pigeons and questionable graffiti. It smelled like ambition and bad decisions. I loved it. My parents offered to help me move. I said no. They offered to buy furniture. I said no. Eventually, they offered something real. A conversation. No strings. We met at a diner halfway between my place and theirs. My dad ordered black coffee. My mom wore that cardigan she only pulls out when she's not sure who she is in a moment. "We want to make things better," my mom said. "I believe that," I said. "But better starts with truth." They didn't argue. They just listened as I told them what it felt like to grow up as Brandon's contrast. How silence felt like erasure. How withholding wasn't discipline, it was dismissal. My dad took a deep breath. "You deserve better from us." It landed like an anchor in my chest. Not because I needed it, but because they needed to say it. As I left the diner, my mom pressed something into my hand. A small envelope. Inside was a card. No check. No key. Just a short note. No more conditions. Just love. It wasn't everything. But it was something. And I was finally free to decide what came next. 1 month later, I gave a guest lecture. Linus had recommended me to his media professor. Turns out the chaos I caused got written up in a student ethics journal. The class was packed. Some kids knew the Brandon story. Some didn't. I started with a joke. If anyone here has a golden child in the family, blink twice. They laughed. Then I told them what I wish someone had told me. Silence doesn't make you noble. It makes you invisible. And sometimes the only way to be seen is to shine a light on the mess. After class, a student approached me. First year. Shy. Hoodie sleeves over her hands. She whispered, "Thank you. My brother's the Brandon in our house." And I thought it was just me. I didn't hug her. I didn't cry. I just said, "It's not." Later that night, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a thin box. My name printed cleanly on the front. I opened it. Inside? A custom pen. Engraved with 5 words. Write your own damn story. No note. No explanation. But I knew. It was from my dad. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a problem to be fixed. I felt like a person they finally saw. Like I'd rewritten the family narrative and signed it myself. Spring melted into summer, and the quiet felt earned for once. I took on a new freelance contract building a secure API for a nonprofit helping whistleblowers. Fitting. Therapeutic even. One night, Linus threw me a "You didn't burn out or get sued" party. 3 people came. One brought bean dip. One thought it was a birthday. Linus handed me a drink and said, "So, golden boy. Any regrets?" I paused. Looked around at the mismatched cups, the thrift store banner that said, "You did it," and the quiet hum of a laptop uploading my latest build. "No," I said. "Only that I didn't walk out sooner." He toasted to that. The next morning, I got an email. From Brandon. Subject: Hey. No body text. No signature. Just a single attachment. A PDF titled, Statement of Dissolution, Fairchild Innovations LLC. I clicked it. Official. Signed. Witnessed. He was shutting it all down. I didn't reply. Not out of spite. Just clarity. That story was over. And I was already deep into writing the next one. A month later, I got invited to speak on a podcast. Not about the Brandon drama, but about digital ethics. About accountability. About how families aren't immune from systemic favoritism, they're just better at hiding it in casseroles and Christmas cards. The host asked, "What advice would you give someone in your shoes?" I said, "If your value has a price tag on it, someone else probably put it there." Then I paused. And added, "And it's okay to walk away from the people who want a refund when you won't stay small." The clip went viral. Not internet break viral. But enough. Enough that people started messaging again. One of them? Brandon's younger sister. She wrote, "I always wondered what happened behind closed doors. Thanks for turning the lights on." That one hit different. It made me realize this whole thing? It wasn't just my story anymore. It was a permission slip for the ones who never got to speak. And I wasn't done writing. Not yet. By midsummer, the storm had mostly passed. Brandon stayed offline. Aunt Caroline resurfaced once to post a passive-aggressive Facebook status about entitlement in the younger generation, and then promptly got ratioed by 3 cousins and an aunt who never comments on anything. My dad sent me a text with nothing but a thumbs up and a link to an article titled, How to Actually Say I'm Proud of You to Your Kid Without Sounding Like a Fortune Cookie. Progress. And me? I started building something new. Not software this time, at least not just software. A platform. An actual space for students like me. Like the ones who emailed after the site went viral. The ones buried in favoritism. Ghosted in their own families. I called it Unseen. A digital community with resources, mentorship, a rotating roster of speakers who understood what it meant to be the shadow in someone else's spotlight. The tagline, "You matter, even when they don't see it." Linus helped with branding. Jordan, that Jordan the tech wizard from Declan's story, if you caught that crossover, jumped in to help with back-end infrastructure. We kept it light, clean, anonymous by default. Within weeks, we had hundreds of sign-ups. Then thousands. One user wrote, "I never thought being the forgotten sibling had a name. It does now. Thanks." I printed that one and pinned it above my desk. Not for clout. For compass. Every time I thought about dialing it back, I looked at that note and kept going. Because I wasn't just writing code anymore. I was writing a mirror. The first unseen meetup happened in a public park. No speeches. No press. Just folding chairs, borrowed AV equipment, and a table covered in iced tea and paper name tags. I didn't know what to expect. Would anyone even show? 37 people came. One kid said, "My dad calls me the spare." Like to my face. A girl said, "My mom still puts my sister's graduation photo on the mantel, mine's on the fridge." Clipped under a grocery list. They weren't looking for therapy. They were looking for proof that their experience wasn't a glitch in the simulation. At one point, a college sophomore with a quiet voice and 3 visible anxiety tics raised his hand and asked, "What do we do when the people who made us won't see us?" I didn't give some TED Talk answer. I said, "You build something so honest, they can't look away." And then I added, "You stop begging to be invited to a table that only seats one golden boy." They clapped. The kind that isn't polite. The kind that says, "Finally, someone said it out loud." Later that night, I stood by the parking lot, holding a trash bag full of empty teacups, and just breathed. No spotlight. No applause. Just quiet. But this time, it felt earned. And holy hell, that felt like everything. That fall, I got invited to speak at a university panel. Tact, Truth, and the Power of Walking Away. I wasn't sure I belonged. The other panelists had patents, books, facial recognition startups, and 3 TEDx talks between them. But after the talk, a student came up to me, oversized hoodie, eyes like mine when I was 17. "You're the reason I didn't go home last summer," he said. Not in a runaway way. In a survival way. He handed me a drawing. Black ink, on lined notebook paper. It was a lighthouse. Only instead of light, it was casting out code binary numbers streaking across the waves. "You showed me how to be the signal," he said. I still have that drawing. It sits next to the first printed page of Unseen's codebase. The night after that panel, I got a text from my dad. No words. Just a photo. Him, sitting on the porch, reading a copy of the student ethics journal that featured my story. He was smiling. No defense. No pride-swallowing caption. Just a man who finally understood the son he tried to rewrite. And was learning to read him as he actually was. December hit like it always does, quiet stress disguised the celebration. I went home for the holidays. Not their house. Mine. The little apartment with the crooked heater, and the shelf full of donated mugs. But this year, they came to me. My mom brought pie. My dad brought folding chairs. Brandon didn't come, but he sent a message, brief, but different. "Hope you're well." I mean that. Genuinely. I read it 3 times. Not because I trusted it. Because I wanted to believe it was real. My mom looked around my tiny space, eyes landing on the drawing of the lighthouse. She asked, "Is that yours?" "No," I said. "But it's me." She didn't get it. Not all the way. But she smiled like she wanted to. And that was more than I ever got growing up. We ate. We didn't fight. My dad washed the dishes and didn't correct how I stacked them. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to earn my place at the table. I built the table. And anyone who came in peace was welcome. Mid-January, Unseen crossed 50,000 users. We had moderators now. Real funding. A grant from a foundation that normally funds mental health outreach. We weren't just a forum anymore, we were a lighthouse network. And with it came our first troll wave. A bunch of burner accounts started flooding the site, accusing users of being soft, whiny, family traitors. Some tried to dox moderators. One even spun up a fake campaign calling Unseen anti-family propaganda. I knew the tone. The language. The smug, condescending flavor. It was Brandon. Not directly. Not provably. But I'd bet the apartment lease on it. Old Brandon wouldn't have bothered. But now, I'd taken his audience. I'd become the mirror he couldn't shatter. Linus said, "You want me to go full DEFCON and digitally vaporize this clown?" I said no. I wrote a post. Not under admin. Under my real name. Titled, "A Note to the Ones Who Try to Unmake Us." I wrote, "You can troll us, mock us, even call your tantrum a crusade. But here's the truth. We are not afraid of the spotlight anymore. You don't get to gatekeep visibility. We've built our own floodlights." I closed it with, "And one last thing. If you're still out here calling yourself the golden child, just know the gold rubs off. But we forge ourselves. It spread like wildfire. The site tripled in donations that night. 3 therapists reached out to partner. We got a DM from a teacher in Ireland asking if they could start an Unseen Teens chapter. And then, I got a call. Blocked number. I picked up. Is this Theo? Brandon's voice. I didn't hang up. Listen, he said. I didn't mean for any of this to get so big. Too late, I said. I've lost a lot, man. Then maybe stop building empires out of borrowed time and other people's silence. He paused. Then quietly. Do you really think I'm that bad? No, I said. I think you're scared that you're not good. He didn't reply. I didn't expect him to. I just let the silence stretch, and for once, it was mine. I was asked to give the keynote at a youth mental health summit. Not because I was a doctor. Because I was visible. The theme was rebuilding from silence. Fitting. I walked on stage to polite applause. Left to a standing ovation. But it wasn't the speech that mattered. It was what happened after. In the hallway outside the venue, a girl maybe 16, maybe younger stopped me with shaking hands. She didn't say hello. She said, I sent Unseen a message 3 weeks ago. I was going to drop out of school. I nodded, careful. Quiet. She pulled out her phone and showed me the reply we'd sent. One of our moderators. A paragraph. A resource. A line that just said, You matter too much to disappear. She said. That line saved me. I didn't have anything profound to say. I just said, I'm really glad you stayed. Later, on the train ride home, I cried. Not big, performative sobs. Just soft, steady gratitude leaking out of places I didn't know were still healing. When I walked back into my apartment, there was a box at the door. No name. No label. Inside was a framed photo. One I'd never seen before. Me at age 9. Sitting in the background of a family Christmas shot, half blocked by Brandon's shiny new bike, quietly reading a book by the fireplace. On the back, in my mother's handwriting. We see you now. I sat on the floor and stared at it until the sun came up. That photo? It wasn't proof of love. It was proof of change. And sometimes, that's the bigger miracle. I got invited back to campus that spring, not as a student. As an honoree. Emerging voice in digital ethics, they called it. The ceremony was small. No fanfare. No stadium seating. Just folding chairs and a surprisingly decent charcuterie board. Linus came. My dad did too. He wore the tie I gave him for Christmas 5 years ago. The one he never wore. Not because he hated it, because he never thought I'd be the reason he needed something nice. The dean gave a speech. I stood, accepted the award, smiled for the one obligatory photo. And then they handed me the mic. I didn't talk about Brandon. I talked about what it means to be built in someone else's shadow. And what it means to leave it not out of spite, but because the light exists whether they offer it to you or not. I said, sometimes healing doesn't mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means reclaiming your name in a voice loud enough for yourself to hear. They clapped. I stepped down. Sat back beside my dad. He looked at me like he hadn't in years. Not like I was difficult. Or defiant. Or disappointing. He looked at me like I was his. Later that night, we sat in the car outside my apartment for a minute too long. He cleared his throat. Classic stall tactic. Then he said, I'm not good at this part. But I want to say it before I talk myself out of it. He turned to me, voice tight. You didn't just survive us, Theo. You evolved. He reached for the glove box. Pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check. I started to shake my head. He raised a hand. It's not tuition. It's not an apology. It's support. No strings. Just because I believe in what you're building. I didn't take the money that night. But I kept the envelope. Because even that was part of the story now. And I wanted to remember that change wasn't always cinematic. Sometimes it was just a father sitting in a car, doing his best to unlearn. Summer hit different this time. The old version of me would have spent it trying to earn forgiveness I didn't owe, or chasing validation like it was a prize with a deadline. This year? I booked a cabin. No signal. No screens. Just me, a box of books, and the unseen community in maintenance mode, handed off to the incredible team we built. The platform didn't need me to breathe anymore. Which meant I could breathe too. I spent 3 days sleeping in, then 3 more outlining a book. Not a memoir. A manual. Title: Scene: Building Value Without Permission. Each chapter framed like code. Structured. Reclaimable. I wrote about family systems like outdated architecture. I wrote about identity as version control. About setting boundaries like you write APIs clear, firm, documented. By the 3rd week, I had 42,000 words and a tan line shaped like a paperback. Then one night, under a sky so clear it made me nervous, I opened my email just to check. There it was. Subject: Speaking Invitation, TEDx. What happens after you walk out? No hesitation. I clicked yes. I didn't do it for fame. Or closure. Or some dramatic full circle moment. I did it for the kid still sitting in the back row of family photos. Holding his breath like presence was something he had to earn. 2 days before the talk, my mom texted. We'll be in the audience. No pressure. Just pride. And then she added. Brandon asked if he could come too. We said yes. He wants to listen. I stared at that text for a long time. Not because I doubted it. Because maybe for the first time it didn't matter. I didn't need his permission to tell the truth. And I didn't need anyone else's presence to make me real. The night before the TEDx talk, I barely slept. Not because I was nervous. I'd spoken to bigger crowds. More hostile ones, too. But this felt different. This was the first time I'd be telling the story out loud, not in private code, not in carefully crafted forum posts, not hidden behind usernames or legal distance. This was my voice, under lights, with no edits. I stood behind the curtain, mic in place, pulse in my ears. Through a crack, I spotted them, my parents, sitting near the front. My mom's hand over my dad's. Brandon in the aisle seat, head down, no phone in sight. He looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I just finally saw him for scale. The host called my name. I stepped out. Spotlight. Silence. Heartbeat. Then I spoke. Hi, I'm Theo. And I'm not the golden child. I'm the invisible one who walked out. And this is what happens next. I told them everything. Not to shame. To name. The slow erosion of self-worth through praise shaped like comparison. The guilt-wrapped obligations passed off as love. The long, lonely war of proving yourself to people who only saw reflections of themselves. I ended with this. I didn't build Unseen to burn bridges. I built it because some of us were never invited across them in the first place. So we made our own. Applause. Brandon stood. He clapped too. Afterward, he waited by the stage door. Asked nothing. Said only, "Thank you?" I nodded. It was enough. That night, I sat by the hotel window, award plaque in my lap, phone off, inbox overflowing with messages from people who finally felt seen. And for the first time, I said it out loud. I made it. And I didn't mean fame. I meant me. I had finally arrived in my own life. Fall came back like it owed me something. The talk went viral. Not internet breaking, but enough to crash Unseen's site for 2 hours. Enough to get a call from a publisher. Enough to make me pause and realize I wasn't just telling a story anymore. I was becoming one. The book deal came with an advance. Not massive, but enough. Enough to pay off the last of my student loans. Enough to replace the thrift store couch with one that didn't feel like defeat when you sat on it. Enough to buy my mom a second-hand upright piano she hadn't touched since I was a kid. I told the publisher I needed one thing in the contract. Final editorial control. Not because I was paranoid. Because I knew what it was like to have your voice reworded into someone else's comfort. They agreed. The working title stayed, Seen. And I meant every page. Each chapter opened with a quote from anonymous Unseen users. The real ones. The quiet ones. The ones who still hadn't left home or told the truth or drawn their line in the sand. One read, I'm 39. I've been the good daughter for 39 years. Your story made me realize I don't owe anyone another year of that. Another said, I printed your post and taped it to my wall. My mom tore it down. I put up 5 more. By the 3rd draft, I knew what the final line of the book would be. I wrote it in bold. Centered it on the page. Stared at it until it felt permanent. You don't have to disappear to be safe. You don't have to stay quiet to be good. You are allowed to exist out loud. I sent the draft off. Then I cried. And it wasn't grief. The book launched on a Tuesday. Nothing exploded. No champagne. No balloons. Just a cardboard box on my doorstep, filled with copies that smelled like ink and closure. I mailed the first one to my parents. Inside I'd scribbled, "Not a warning. Not revenge. Just truth. Thank you for learning to hold it." They texted the next morning. A photo of the book on their kitchen table. No filter. No caption. And then, "We're proud of what you made. Not who you've become. What you made. Because that's what mattered all along. I wasn't the golden child. I was the forge. And now? I wasn't waiting to be seen. I was living like I already was." Somewhere in a campus dorm, a kid pulled my book off a library shelf and read that last line out loud. I know, because they tagged me in a photo later. Underlined the word forge. Wrote "Me Too" in the margin. And I smiled. Because that's the real ending. Not applause. Not revenge. Not a big cinematic redemption. Just one more invisible kid realizing they were never invisible to begin with.